Welcome everybody back into NerdSesh. As always, I'm Carson Breber and alongside me is Logan Camden. And today we are going to be giving our NBA award and playoff predictions. We have already broken down every single team across the league now, our preseason expectations and predictions for them. So you can go ahead and find all of those across our division preview episodes. Today, Logan, we are on to the final task, and that is our awards and playoff predictions. Let's start with awards, and let's start with the biggest of them all, Logan. Who do you think is going to be the league MVP this year?
So I've got a three-horse race for this award, and
Okay.
they're all in the Western Conference, all atop the conference. I considered Nikola Jokic. I considered Luka Doncic, but with my expectations for this team, I'm going to take Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to win the MVP award. And, I thought he was one of the closest guys to winning this award last year, right? The Thunder locked up the number one seed in the West. So consistent, 30 points per game every single night. I just think that the team success that Oklahoma City is going to have, right, they've improved their depth so much. This team is just so much better. I just think they're going to win a ton of regular season games, and I want to emphasize something. When I say that, I want to reward, obviously, like the best player that contributed to the best winning team. But like for the Celtics, for example, right, who I have winning 60 games, I have the Thunder winning 58. With that logic, you may say, oh, well, why aren't you taking Jason Tatum? Or why wouldn't you take Jalen Brown, right? They're the best player on the best team, whoever you consider that to be.
Jalen Brown. Logan,
I'm just
you don't
saying.
even have to acknowledge that. Don't even do that.
I'm just
the
saying.
The day Jalen Brown is in MVP talks is the day I castrate myself live on camera.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Okay, I mean real MVP talks.
Okay. We'll have it
Not
on
like one Celtics fan throws it out
We'll
there.
go on like live leak, and Carson can bang that out, man.
I really wish I hadn't said that. That's life.
It's a little dramatic. It's a little much.
Cal Bears legend Jalen Brown, but my God, he's getting overrated right now.
Yeah. That's another discussion in and of itself. But so you may be saying, why wouldn't you take a guy like Jason Tatum? Well, Tatum's a really great player, and I value Tatum. I think Tatum's a top 10 player in all of basketball, but that's the distinction, right? I think Tatum's top 10. I think SGA is closer to top 5 to top 3, and I think he just will have a stronger MVP case. I have him winning more games than Jokic. I have him winning more games than Luka, and I just think he's a total package, and he's going to be the best player, the offensive engine of this team, a damn good defensitive player, and I want to reward that. But I do think it's going to be close, man. I think these are the three top dogs in this race to me. But I'm going to give it to SGA. But Luka's a tough cut. I think Luka's going to have a real legitimate case at the end of this year, too.
I also have SGA as my preseason MVP pick, Logan, and I have the Thunder as more of a runaway number one seed in the West, and just as being the best regular season team in the league overall. I have them winning 61 games. I knocked them down one win because Isaiah Hartenstein, we now know, is going to miss a little over a month to start the season, which is a bummer, but they're very well equipped to handle that because you just slide Chet in as your starting five and you go back to your small ball identity, and you're still better at that because you're plus an Alex Caruso minus a Josh Giddey, and all these young dudes on your team are just getting better. So I think that that's a huge component of Shai's case, that I think he'll be on easily the best regular season team. And I do make a distinction between his case and a Jason Tatum last year because I do think that Shai is a more overwhelmingly dominant player. I think he's the fourth best player in basketball. I don't think you could put him outside your top five. And his production last year was monstrous. He gave you 36 and 6 on 64% true shooting. One of the most consistently dominant scoring seasons we have seen in the history of this league, with just the fact that he was churning out 30 pieces every single night. Still a plus defender, plus playmaker, not an elite one, but a really, really exceptional superstar who I think is going to be on the best team in the league. And maybe leaps from J-Dub and Chet could take a little piece out of his volume, but I don't really think it will. And I'm not a fan of the default best player on best team case, right? I think sometimes we put dudes in these conversations if it's Devin Booker or Chris Paul in 2022, if it's Donovan Mitchell in 2021, who just have no business being there. But when you're playing individually at the level that SGA is on a dominant regular season team, then I think that that case does hold some water. But it's still not my favorite rationale, and I honestly really, really think Jokic could win again. Because he's going to be the best individual player in basketball. He's going to have, again, the most impressive on-off data, how much they improve with him on the court compared to when he's off it. He's going to have overwhelming production. He's going to have insane efficiency on a team that I have winning 54 games, that I have as the 2 seed out west, that a lot of people have sort of counted out and expected them to fall more into that sort of second group of teams in the West below a Dallas. I think they're better than that, and I think Jokic is going to have another exceptional regular season. I honestly think he'll probably make the best objective case. But can he win 4 MVP awards in 5 years? Like, it's just exceedingly, exceedingly difficult to do. Voter fatigue shouldn't be a thing, but it is. It's very real. People were already pushing hard for SGA last year. He was the runner-up, and these teams had identical records last year. And now I think that the Thunder are going to win 7 more games than the Nuggets. I think that's where the tiebreaker in the court of public opinion will go to Shai.
Yeah, and I think Jokic is going to have a real case too, and I agree with you. I don't think that voter fatigue should exist, but it is very real, and I think that is going to factor in. Like, I think the best example of voter fatigue is like Derrick Rose's MVP in 2011, right? Like LeBron, so clearly like still the best player on the planet, and he ends up getting a few more MVP awards in Miami, but it's like even past that, right? It's like you could have made a LeBron MVP case every year until 2018, right? Maybe even further past that. So it really is real. You know, there's only so many MVP awards I think that a guy can rack up, and
yeah,
I do think it's probably going to factor in. That's why if you were a betting man, I'm not a betting man. I think the smart money would either be on SGA or Luka, just because I think it's going to be hard for Jokic to win 4 out of 5. But I think Jokic is going to be a top 3 candidate again.
LeBron did win 4 out of 5, even with voter fatigue, but those are the only 4 that he got. And Jokic, as much as I love him, is not LeBron James. But I think he's going to make a very, very strong individual case. And the reason I think Luka is 3rd out of these 3 is I think that Jokic is just going to make a more compelling case of carrying his team to win 50-plus games, not having the sort of overwhelming talent that the Celtics and Thunder do, but having, again, that insane best individual impact in the league. I don't think the Mavs are going to win quite as many games, and I don't think that Luka is as good individually as Jokic. And I do think that Luka's a little bit better individually than Shai, but I think that Shai's team is going to be much more dominant. I can see us looking back at the end of this year and saying, well, the Thunder are just the most talented team in basketball, or, you know, are tied for that title effectively with the Celtics, and so maybe Shai's case does get knocked down a little bit because of that. But I think he's a pretty safe bet. Rookie of the year, Logan. Who do you have here?
Yeah, I debated between 2 guys. We alluded to this last episode, between Zach Edey and Reed Shepherd. The reason I went with Edey over Shepherd, one, I think that Reed is going to have a little bit of a harder time getting PT. I think he's just going to not have as much burn as Edey. I think that if the Grizzlies are smart, they will also limit Edey's minutes a little bit just because of how big he is and getting up and down the court. Like, I don't know if I want Edey playing a lot more than 30 minutes a night. You know what I mean? With just that kind of size. Like, I think that 25 to 28 range is really good for Edey.
Yep.
And just with how many backcourt pieces that Houston has, right? Van Vliet needing burn. I think it's Jalen Green. I think it's going to be a little harder for Shepherd to get a ton of minutes to really make a strong statistical case. But that being said, Edey is not going to have a problem putting up numbers whatsoever. And that's why I'm really confident. This is probably, if you were going to place down a bet, this is the one that I would be most confident in out of the award picks, is Edey to win Rookie of the Year. One, the opportunity. Again, he's going to start at center. I think that he is going to help make the Grizzlies a great team defense. He's got great defensive pieces around him. That's going to be a huge component in his case as a rookie. And again, the counting numbers. I think he's going to walk into at least 15 points per game a night because of how efficient he is as a post scorer, just how massive he is, right? If he gets switches and mismatches on the low block, he's going to abuse them. He's going to eat up rebounds. Again, I think 10 boards a night is a really easy stat line for Edey. I'd expect him to grab more. And over 2 blocks a night, that's a really strong statistical case for a rookie. And beyond Reed and Edey, I'm trying to think about who would have a strong case like
Ryan Dunn.
Make the case, man. Let me hear it.
He's just my dark horse. I mean, I would not bet on him to win the award. I'm taking Edey as well, but Dunn is the dude who I can see being the most impactful defender in the class. That's what I fully expect him to be, and a very real contributor on a good team. Oh my God, dude. Ryan Dunn is a monster. Edie's a flawed defender.
I just mean in like positional value wise.
Still, not even close. Ryan Dunn is an absolute monster, and he's not like your normal elite defensive wing because he does bring so much interior value. He's a shot blocking machine for a wing, and if he can just keep up, again, anything close to the level of shooting that we've seen in preseason, I think he becomes a part of the Phoenix Suns' best five. He won't have ever like eye-popping offensive production. You know, if he gave you 10 points per game and made 34% of his threes, that'd be a success. But you pair that with like outstanding defense for a rookie contributing to a good team, that would be a compelling case. But he's still my number 3 candidate. Reed would be my number 2 because I think he's so pro-ready. He's such a complete basketball player, and the shot gives him just incredible immediate value, and he really competes defensively, and he's smart with the basketball, good playmaker, but he doesn't have the opportunity. And ultimately, nobody is more pro-ready than Zach Edey, right? This is a dude who played 4 years of college basketball. For the last 2 years was unquestionably the best player in college basketball, and he comes into a situation where he is a perfect fit, addresses a need, and is going to contribute to a team that is trying to win now. I think he is exactly what Memphis needed alongside Triple J, a massive screen-setting, dominant rebounder, pure rim protecting, guy who can defend the post, real, true blue 5 alongside Triple J, who's better suited as the 4. And then he does have that aspect of just dominant post scoring, as you mentioned. I mean, unbelievable post-up volume at Purdue and gave you 85th percentile efficiency. Teams just can't guard him down there. The touch, the size, it's overwhelming. He's going to eat up free throws. I think he could average 15 and 10 on like 65% true shooting, even playing, 26 minutes a night, which is probably what I'd expect. And he will be an effective interior defender, and he'll rack up 1.5, 2 blocks a game. I just don't see anybody else immediately contributing like Edey, nor do I see anybody else probably having the opportunity to do so. This is just a class where we talked about it throughout the draft process. Lean on the guys with high floors in general, but especially when it comes to this Rookie of the Year race. He's the dude who is ready to do it now in a way that an Alex Sarr is not, a Reese Shea is not. You look at the top of the draft, those guys just aren't as ready to contribute now as Zach Edey is.
Real quick, do you think Dalton Connect will have any outside shot at this award?
Connect is another one of those dudes who's super pro-ready. I think is going to be a really, really nice offensive contributor for the Lakers. But where Edey's going to start, I think that Connect is going to find himself playing more like 17 minutes a game, right? I think that he's a very nice complement to both Reeves and D'Lo because he does so much away from the ball. But those dudes are still going to eat up a lot of minutes, and I think the Lakers will stagger them more. So he's just not as high in the hierarchy. But he's a good dude to mention on the short list.
I mean, I just wanted to mention him after the hell of a game he had in preseason the other night. Hits the game, game-tying shot over Bol. I think he dropped a 34-piece. Like, I'm playing Connect more than that if I was running the Lakers, man. Like, I would run a ton of lineups with Connect at the 3, Bron at the 4, AD at the 5. He's just a weapon, man, and he's so ready. I just wanted to mention him, too, because I think it's such a home run by the Lakers of a draft pick just in terms of what they need right now. Because you think about a year ago when they drafted Jalen Hood-Schifino, the two guys that go after him are Jaime Jaquez Jr. and Brandin Podziemski. Hood-Schifino still has yet to get real NBA minutes, real NBA burn, while, Jaime Jaquez and B-Pods are really good role players impactfully immediately. So I did want to mention him. I think he's a good honorable mention, and I think the Lakers crushed that draft pick, man. I think he's going to be a real winner in year one.
And we said that the night of. I mean, those are two great picks because of the player, but really the situation and their readiness to contribute in teams that are all about winning right now. That's what you get. You get pro-ready dudes who are going to produce as rookies. Defensive Player of the Year, Logan. Who's your pick?
Another one I'm very confident in. Maybe put a little parlay together, man. Rookie of the Year in Depoy with Edey and this guy. Victor Wembanyama is going to be my pick for Defensive Player of the Year, and it was really close last year between him and Gobert, as we discussed throughout the season, Carson. I don't know if you feel differently about that award race this year, but I did think Gobert was deserving of it. Best defender on the best team defense, still an elite rim protector and rebounder. Like, people can clown on Gobert for how gangly and goofy and uncoordinated he is offensively. Still a great defender, and I will respect Gobert and that award. I think he deserved it. But this year, I think it is going to be Wemby. We mentioned some of these numbers on last episode when we were talking about the Spurs. The Spurs were 8.5 points per 100 possessions better defensively with Wemby on the floor versus without. They went from the number 30 defense without Wemby on the floor, dead last in the league, to a top 10 defense, with Wemby on the floor. When he was at center, another stat that you mentioned, Carson, 4.5 blocks per game for the entire season, averaged over 3.5 blocks per game. As a rookie, I will add, he's going to block a ton of shots. He is going to be one of the most impactful rim protectors in all of basketball this year. And he is, I don't know, man, arguably as close to a one-man defense as you can get in the league. And some of the areas where I think we will see legitimate, tangible improvement from Wemby this year, I think he's going to be more disciplined. I think he's going to be better defending in space. And I think he's going to be smarter positionally just in terms of where he needs to be on the court. I think all of those things are going to improve this year. And I think we're going to see it come together for him to win this award. Do you think is 6 stocks too many a game for
I don't
Wemby,
think his stocks are going to keep going up. That's
You don't
my
think
take.
so?
I think his shot blocking numbers are going to go down a little bit as he does become more disciplined and puts more of an emphasis on deterrence as opposed to chasing
Do you think
blocks.
people just won't attack him as much?
I think that's the most significant value that any great defensive big has. It's deterrence, right? It's why Gobert only averages 2 blocks a game. Now, to be clear, Wemby is still a massive deterrent already, but he is a little bit more prone to chasing blocks than some of these more veteran dudes who are just constantly weaponizing their presence and staying disciplined and still shutting down offenses and keeping them out of the paint. But then again, he's going to be playing more minutes, so I don't know. I think that he'll probably be around 5 stocks a game again this year. And he is the obvious choice. I'm not going to take Wemby, though. Listen, he's going to win, I would say, at least 5 Defensive Player of the Year awards. I think he's going to break the record. I've said this before. I think that he absolutely has the tools to be the greatest defensive player ever. Now, surpassing Bill Russell, considering how overwhelmingly impactful Russell could be in his era defensively, is an incredibly, incredibly tall task. But Wemby is on the very short list of guys who have had the potential to do so. He's just the most physically gifted defensive player that we've ever seen. I'm just not picking Wemby because I don't want to be boring. And this is such a ridiculously overwhelming favorite, dude. He is the odds-on favorite preseason to win Defensive Player of the Year. The next highest favorite is a few guys, I think, at like plus 1,200. It's crazy. So I'm going to mix it up here. I'm going to take Chet and allow me to make my case. When you're looking at the OKC team defense, the news about the Hartenstein injury sucks because I think that their dual rim protector look is going to be so lethal. And I think their defense will be at its best when Hartenstein is available. But I still think it'll be a dominant defense beforehand because Chet is one of the absolute best pure rim protectors in basketball, and he's one of the best bigs guarding in space in basketball. And the Thunder have absolutely elite perimeter personnel. And I do think if we're looking at this defense after more than a month of the season and they're the number 1 defense without Hartenstein, that'll allow Chet to get some more of the credit because that's kind of the concern for me with OKC. Same thing as you could argue with Shai. Yes, this is the best team. This is the best defense. So you give credit to whoever is the best player, or in this case, the best defender, but you have to counterweight that against, well, they have a ton of help, and that's definitely a factor in the results. But I just think Chet is an absolute freak defensively. I think he already has the best timing and verticality of any shot blocker in basketball. I think his IQ is really, really exceptional for a player of his age. I did think he was a more fundamentally sound defender than Wemby last year. Not better, but more mature in that way. And he does guard extremely well in space, and he's only going to get better in year 2. And I think he'll probably be second in the league in blocks to Wemby, to be fair. But I think OKC is going to be decisively the best defense in basketball. Like, I think Boston's amazing. I think Orlando's amazing. I don't think anybody has this combination of elite point of attack defense, elite interior defense, and this many personnel combinations they can maintain and still be a great defense, most of which are oriented around having Chet on the floor either at the 5 or the 4. He won't have huge rebound numbers, and again, he may have to split some of the credit for the greatness of this defense, but the reason that I'm not going to go chalk and pick Wemby is I think some people are overlooking how strong the precedent is that depoys come from elite team defenses. And as amazing as Wemby was last year, and as much as he transformed their team defense, improving them by 8.5 points per 100, the personnel around him is still so bad. They were so bad when he's off the floor that, like, if the Spurs finished this season overall as an average defense, I'd be surprised. I'd be really impressed. I still think that they're probably going to be somewhere from like 18 to 22 in the league defensively. And we haven't seen a defensive player of the year win the award who wasn't on a top 10 defense since Marcus Camby in 2007, who was on the number 11 defense. We are smarter about how we vote now, and we have access to this on-off data and stuff that tells us, okay, your team's bottom line defensive rating isn't even reflective of how good they are defensively just when you're on the floor. They could be a really good defense when you're on the floor and still be a bad defense overall because they're that bad when you're off the floor, and that really is the case for Wemby, and he's literally the GOAT defensive talent and is going to put up stock numbers that are going to boggle our minds. So he absolutely is the sort of dude who can defy that precedent. But if OKC's defense is like historically dominant, far and away best in the league, and Chet is like 93% as good as Wemby individually, then I think he has a good path to winning.
I mean, you make a good case. It's logical. I just think Wemby's statistical case is going to be overwhelming. Let me ask you this: in theory,
yeah,
do you think that's how we should view this award? Like, what I mean by that is, I understand, and thank you for laying out the precedent.
Yeah.
I think that's important context to add. In your personal opinion, do you think that's how we should view it, or should we view it in the context of how great was this defense when this guy was on the floor? Like, I think a great example
that's what I think it should be.
A couple of years ago,
that you should be punished for what happens when you're not on the floor.
I agree, because like you think back a couple of years ago when Draymond Green, like the on-off numbers were staggering, right? The Warriors had a below-league average defense with Dre off the floor, and yet they're one of the best defenses in all of basketball with Dre on the floor. Okay, I just wanted to clear that up.
When Jokic won MVP as the 6th seed, and people say, oh, they're the 6th seed. Well, the Nuggets were a better team by point differential, by net rating, when he was on the floor than Embiid's Sixers, than Giannis's Bucks, than all of the other major contenders. I think that's flawed thinking. I'm just explaining the justification for how somebody other than Wemby could win it. And really, I think Wemby is the very deserved favorite. I think it's very likely that he wins this award. But if anybody else is going to do it, I think it's Chet. And I think he has an underratedly legitimate case. Like, to me, if you're going to get him at plus 1,200, those are too long of odds. Because he is so great individually, and this team defense is going to be so great in OKC. Whereas the Spurs defense, as great as Wemby is, just sucks around him. All right, 6th man of the year, Logan. Who you got?
You're beautiful, baby boy.
Come on,
you're
baby.
Beautiful, baby boy, man.
Fire me up.
As long as he's coming off the bench, I don't know if I'm ever going to take another player to win 6th man of the year, bro. I think he's been the most valuable 6th man in basketball for a while now. Like,
this is Malik Ahmad Monk, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know.
For those who don't know, Malik Ahmad Monk was Carson's Twitter header for a very long time, man.
I think he still is, actually.
He might still be. Carson loves Malik
Monk. I think
Monk.
Hornets Malik Monk is still my Twitter header. Hold on,
and
let's
somewhere
confirm.
Somewhere in the back there, he's got a Malik Monk Hornets jersey too, man.
I
do. I am going to take Malik. The one negative that I think could see hindering Malik's case is just the addition of DeMar DeRozan, where maybe he eats into his touches a little bit, just because now, Malik filled a very valuable role for the Kings and has filled a very valuable role for the Kings over the past few seasons. There hasn't been much individual self-creation and ball handling outside of De'Aaron Fox, and that's been a real weapon for the Kings, right? In non-Fox minutes, Malik Monk can legitimately float your offense and carry you through down stretches. Or if Fox is off, you play them both together, and he can give you some real firepower. And so the only downside I see to Malik's case where somebody else could win is with the addition of DeMar DeRozan taking up some of those touches from Malik. But that being said, I still think Malik's going to get a ton of burn. I think in negative minutes where Fox and DeMar aren't on the floor, I think he's still going to run the show like he always has. And the reason that I still believe in him to win this award is his growth in playmaking that we've seen over the past few seasons. I've never been as confident as I have been in Malik in legitimately running an offense, running pick and roll at a high level, making great decisions, finding open shooters. He's really grown in that area as an offensive basketball player. And personally, there's nobody else I'd rather have running my offense off the bench than Malik in the NBA today. Like, I love Malik, man. His speed, his quickness, his change of pace, his control, and again, his growth of a playmaker. There's not a ton of holes in Malik's game as an offensive player right now. And again, man, this guy legitimately changes games. He changes series. I think back to the Warriors series, man, when the Kings were in the playoffs a couple years back. Malik flipped that series on his head. Nobody could stay in front of him. Nobody could stop him and Fox. He's a legitimate game changer. He's one of the best bench players in basketball. And I guess if I had to shout out a second guy, probably Bobby Portis. Naz Reid, I think, would be a good shout, too, if Naz was coming off the bench this year. But he might start. If he doesn't start, I think Naz is going to
come off the bench. He's going to come off the bench.
Naz is going to have a legitimate case, I think, this year. So some honorable mentions. I'd go Naz Reid. I'd go Bobby Portis. But I just think Malik Monk fits that mold, and he's going to produce like he always does.
I think that Naz is a good shout. I also think Dante DiVincenzo is a good shout. But I wonder if they sort of cannibalize each other's cases in production a little bit off the bench just because you have two legitimate six-man of the year caliber dudes there. I'm going with Malik, though. He was phenomenal last year. And the biggest improvement, as you mentioned, is as a passer. I mean, he has phenomenal synergy with the bigs in Sacramento. He is phenomenal at hitting the roller. He can make all these wraparound and dump-off passes and kickouts to shooters. Like, he really is a complete offensive creator with that and the speed and the pull-up shooting. 74th percentile pick-and-roll creator last year. And a top 10 clutch scorer last season on 52% from the field in those situations. Just a big-time shot maker, a big-time playmaker. I agree with you on the DeMar concern, but I still think Malik is going to get his. And again, the other strong candidates, Dante and Naz, I think their production might both take a little bit of a dip. Also, Naz's production was inflated last year by the stretch when Cat was out. And now, obviously, Cat's out of the picture, but you have Julius Randle eating up those minutes at the 4. The other dude who I thought about going with here, who I really thought about, is Alex Caruso. The holdup there is, I think he might start too much because with Hartenstein hurt, he's going to start for more than a month of the year, and I could honestly see them at any point starting him over Lou Dort for stretches. If anybody gets hurt at any point, he's going to be like the default plug-and-play starter for them. So I think he could really make the case just in terms of winning impact, not production, which historically hasn't been favored for sixth men. I think back to 2021 when it was Clarkson versus Ingles, and I thought Ingles was the more impactful player, but Clarkson had more of the classic sixth man of the year, volume scoring, not really efficient, but just a bucket, right? A Jamal Crawford, a Lou Will type. That's what this award has historically rewarded. But I think Caruso is the best player in basketball coming off the bench because I think he's top 70 in terms of impact. And again, he's coming off the bench. But I worry about him starting too much, and he won't have the raw numbers. Most improved, Logan, who do you like here?
This is an interesting race, man. The odds on this award have really fascinated me. The fact that, like, Wemby, J-Dub, Evan Mobley, Jalen Johnson are leading the way, and those are all guys that I feel like, one, Wemby's already a great basketball player, and like you always talk about when we do these predictions, I always think it's hard to give it to a guy in year 2 when you're expected to take that leap from rookie season to year 2. I think it should be a guy that's more surprising.
And when you're the number 1 overall pick and literally a prodigious talent, like LeBron took the leap from being like, okay, good, exciting young stars giving you like 26 and 6, but inefficient, to top 5 kind of player in basketball. He didn't win most improved. They gave it to Bobby Simmons. Like, this award really has changed to just be, okay, who is the rising star that we can all see is coming? But he got better, so we give that award to him. But Wemby would be too much, man. Like, he's Victor Wembanyama. Come on, dude. He has LeBron expectations.
And he already had one of the greatest rookie seasons of all time.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would be ridiculous to give him this award. So I think this one's a hard one to bet on. I considered my man, Emmanuel Quickley. I think Quickley is going to put up better counting numbers than last year in Toronto, 18 and 8. So I think he may jump to, maybe 20 points per game, which I think is a legitimate threshold where, you're intrigued by him maybe I considered Brandin Podziemski, considering that he's going to get more burn this year in Golden State. I think his counting numbers are going to be better. He's going to be efficient. Again, it's a little weird with him, too, because he's going into year 2 when you expect a leap. But I'm going to go with Jalen Green to win this award. I think that his statistical case may not take that much of a leap, right? He's at 19 points per game, basically 3.5 assists a night. But that marginal increase, I'm expecting him to go to somewhere between 5 and 6 assists a night, over 20 points per game, but I think he's going to do it more efficiently. I'm really expecting a more controlled and composed Jalen Green than we've been accustomed to in years past. But, my leading candidate for this award last year, Carson, was Jalen Johnson, midway through the year. And I'm wondering if there's going to be a guy like that sitting somewhere on somebody's bench, maybe somebody that we liked in the draft, because damn, man. I mean, 3-4 years ago, we were talking about Jalen Johnson when he was at Duke and how much we liked him as a prospect. And then, he didn't play basically at all his first 2 years, and then he blossomed into an elite rotation player. I'm wondering if it's going to be another sneaky guy like that this year, man, where maybe there's a guy who's been toiling on the bench for a year or two, because that's one thing that's crazy about the league, man. And you could say this for any sport, NFL, NBA. You got to make the most of your opportunity when you get on the floor. There's just so many talented guys. It's hard to get rotational minutes. But that's where I look, man. If there's another, like a real heavy sleeper candidate that maybe hasn't played a whole lot in their first couple of seasons, it's going to break out. But I'm going to take Jalen Green. And again, maybe he won't have the most crazy raw production leap in just terms of counting numbers, but I think we're going to see it in terms of efficiency and his growth as a playmaker. So I'm going to take Jalen Green.
I'm not quite as high on Jalen figuring out some of those complementary aspects to his game and really improving his efficiency as you are. And I do think you make a good point. It's tough when you already have this level of volume, right? Like Ja does it going to being like a 27 point per game scorer. Like once you've established, I can score 19, 20 points per game in this league, the leap from there is a tough one. And it's a leap that the league will reward if you do it. But it's not going to be probably, because he actually only increased his volume by 2 points per game, but he was more efficient. Like, unfortunately, the award tends to require a little bit more flash, a little bit more obviously dramatic improvement than that. This is a really interesting award this year. I feel different about it than I did last year when I called out Tyrese Maxey and Jalen Johnson as my two favorites for the award in the preseason. Like, I thought Maxey was the obvious favorite end-to-end, and I was really, really impressed by what we saw from Jalen Johnson, and those were my top two guys by the end of the year, except Jalen Johnson just didn't play enough games to qualify. Shout out Kobe White as well. Of course, he definitely was thoroughly in that mix as well. Nobody stands out quite in the same way to me preseason this year. I think Wemby being the current favorite is kind of ridiculous. He can improve dramatically. I don't know. It would just have to be so crazy. It would have to be such a massive leap. And it's not in the spirit of this award, The only number one pick who's ever won most improved player was Purvis Ellison, Logan, who went from like 10 points per game to 20 points per game, sucked the entire time. It was a fake-ass leap. But like this award used to really go to role players who just like emerged and became solid starters. And now it has been much more about the stars. But Wemby, we're already talking about as like a top 15 sort of player. I just can't really get behind that. I could see Chet because I think he's in for a monster year, but it's similar. It's not to Wemby's level, but he was already so good as a rookie, and it is the first to second year leap. Although there are several dudes who I'm looking at who I do think will be really improved in their second year. The Houston Rocket, who I would have my eye on, is Amen Thompson. I love Amen Thompson. I'm so high on his ceiling. I'm just not sure this year there's enough ball to go around for him to have the leap in production he'd need, and it looks like he's going to come off the bench. He's probably my second choice because he's such a monster talent. I'm so high on him, and he was so much better in the back half of last year already than he was at the start of the year when he even spent some time in the G League. But there's just a lot of mouths to feed in Houston. So I'm going with Brandin Podziemski. He doesn't have the same upside as these other guys, right? Obviously, the stars who we're talking about, but Amen Thompson, I think, clearly has a much higher ceiling. But he has by far the clearest roll increase, jump in volume, and I'm honestly super confident that Pods is going to have a major uptick in production and is going to have a really good season. I'm expecting him to average like 16, 7, 6. I could see even a little bit more than that. He's the single aspect of the Warriors team this year that I'm highest on. And I do feel a little conflicted about this because it's like, I don't want to seem like I'm feeding into the Warriors hype machine because this just happens with these huge market teams, right? I don't think that Pods is a future star. I just think he's a really good player who's probably going to reach his ceiling sooner rather than later and is about to have this huge leap in opportunity. I've been saying this throughout the offseason. I fully expect him to be a clearly better basketball player than Klay Thompson was last year because of everything that he does around just scoring the basketball, shooting the basketball, with his elite rebounding as a guard, with his playmaking, his selflessness, his hustle. I mean, charge machine, right? Legitimate plus defender. He's just so good. The one thing that we need to see from him is more creation because the Warriors need that alongside Steph, and for him to take an uptick in volume, he's got to do a little bit more with the ball in his hands. He was a 54th percentile pick and roll creator last year, an 81st percentile isolation creator. I think because of his athletic limitations, he struggles a bit to get easy stuff for himself, but he's got an extremely effective step back jumper. He's amazing from floater range. He's super crafty. He's got great footwork in the lane, and even in college, we saw him doing some damage out of the post. So just a really complete offensive player and player overall. And I think he's going to jack up threes too, like take 8+ a game. And I think that's going to be big for him increasing his volume. I think that's going to be a really good path for him being an effective on-ball creator because I do think he's going to be such a good pull-up shooter. And as I've said, I definitely expect for us to view him as the Warriors' third best player this year over Kuminga. So I get it. Like, I'm not expecting a true leap to stardom, but dare I say, there's nothing wrong with the path of going from solid young guy to really good starter. And that's what I'm confident Pods is going to do.
Yeah, I like the pick, man, and I don't think that's an outrageous stat line to expect from Pods. Over 15 a night, 6 boards, 6 assists. He's going to be on the court a lot, and he is, man. He's just a winning basketball player. There's value in finding those guys, man. The Warriors got to steal in the 20s, man, to get – I mean, that draft was just a home run for them, man, to get a guy like Pods in the 20s. Absolutely. And then to get TJD at the back end of the second round. They crushed that draft. I like the pick, man. I like the pick.
Yeah, not to be a stickler, Pods went 19, but that's basically in the 20s. Yeah, phenomenal value pick. All right, Coach of the Year, Logan, who you got?
I'm debating between two guys. I'm going to give it to Jamal Mosley. I have the Magic finishing as my second seed in the Eastern Conference.
Wow.
And, yeah, I didn't realize that when we were doing record predictions. That's just how it ended up being. So I have Orlando as the second seed, and – it's that defensive culture. It's that defensive identity, man, is what they're going to lean on. And I think Mosley's a good coach, man, just like how hard this team plays. It was either between him and J.J. Redick because I have the Lakers winning 50 games, and I just think if they do manage that, I think it's going to be a close race for a first-time rookie head coach to step in here and turn the Lakers around. Again, I legitimately do think the change from Darvin Ham to J.J. Redick is going to make a meaningful regular season difference. So those are my two top guys. I'm going to give it to Jamal Mosley. I just think the Magic are due to overachieve a little bit this year.
I like that. I considered both Mosley and Redick. I honestly think Coach of the Year is the toughest award to predict. Like, a lot of people think it's most improved. I don't agree. I think sometimes you really have a good sense of who's going to take a leap. Coach of the Year is always just a crapshoot. I'm going to take Taylor Jenkins. I just think he's a really good coach, especially in the regular season. He's going to make the most out of his bench. He's going to coach an elite regular season defense. He always does. Memphis basically always develops their young players very well, and we even saw some of that last year in kind of a lost season in terms of them actually competing. I thought he should have been on the short list in 2021. He was second in 2022. Like, he's been in the mix for this award when the Grizzlies are healthy, and I'm expecting a bounce-back regular season from them. I think his coaching is a legitimate part of that. I have them winning 48 games. I don't know. Maybe that's not impressive enough, but I'm a fan of Taylor Jenkins. I would take Dagnall just because I think the Thunder are going to be easily the best team in the league, but I think a lot of that is talent. And also, there are 0 back-to-back Coach of the Year winners in NBA history, so I don't think that he can win again unless they're, like, historic. And you look elsewhere in the top of the standings, I wouldn't mind seeing Mazzulla get it, but I don't think they're going to be as dominant in the regular season as last year, so I don't really see what his case would be unless they're, like, overcoming injuries. Tibbs, maybe. Could happen, but I'm going to go with Taylor Jenkins. Clutch Player of the Year, Logan, who cares? Dare I say we don't even predict this one? It's nonsense. It's a nonsense award. It shouldn't exist. It's absurd to base an award off of 100 minutes of basketball over an entire year, and often not even that. What do you go by? You either go by this dude led the league in clutch points per game, or this dude has the most clutch moments that I remember, which is probably like 3. I hate clutch player of the year. I'm not going to hold back anymore. I don't think it has any business being among these other more legitimate awards. I mean, even sixth man of the year is a significantly better award, and that's awarding the dude who was best at not even being a starter on his own team. So I won't acknowledge it. I won't make a pick.
I agree. I don't mind that.
Conscientious objection. I think the NBA should get rid of it. I think they should get rid of it. It's nonsense. Ask what percentage of people even remember that Steph Curry won last year. It's probably like 10% of NBA fans.
I didn't.
There you go. There you go. The roller coaster of an NFL season is moving right along, and it promises to be a month full of tricks, treats, and of course, touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is the #1 place to bet touchdowns.
Running it in from the 1 or an 80-yard bomb, we don't care how they score touchdowns. We want to bet on them. DraftKings heard us and is delivering. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple, like a player to score a touchdown. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick.
Here's a reason for new customers to do a touchdown dance of their own. Bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code NERDS. That's code NERDS for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. All right, let's talk about the playoffs, Logan. Real quick, we'll run down our seeding first. Let's start with the West. Just motor on through 1 through 15.
So I've got the Thunder, Nuggets, Mavericks, Lakers, Kings, Timberwolves, Suns, Rockets. Those are my top 8 seeds. 9 and 10 joining them in the play-in will be the Grizzlies and the Warriors. And outside of the play-in will be the Pelicans, the Clippers, the Spurs, the Jazz, and the Blazers.
And by the way, we'll do graphics with all this stuff where you guys can see all the specific win totals. I have the Thunder 1, Nuggets 2, Mavs 3, T-Wolves 4, Grizzlies 5, Lakers 6, Kings 7, Suns 8, Pelicans 9, Warriors 10, Rockets 11, then we have a drop, Clippers 12, then we have another little drop, Spurs 13, Jazz 14, Blazers 15. How about the East?
I've got the Celtics atop with 60 wins, 1, Magic 2, Knicks 3, Sixers 4, Bucks 5, Heat 6, Cavs 7, Pacers 8 in the play-in. I have the Hawks at 9, the Raptors at 10, and then out of the play-in, the Bulls, Hornets, Pistons, Nets, and at the bottom are the Wizards.
I have Celtics 1, Knicks 2, Sixers 3, Bucks 4, Magic 5, Pacers 6, Cavs 7, Heat 8 in my play-in slots in the 9 and 10, Hawks, Raptors, then Bulls, Pistons, Hornets, Nets, and the Wizards. Winning 16 games are by far my worst team in basketball this year. Let's get into the playoffs then, Logan. Let's start out west, first round. What are your predictions?
So I have my higher seeds all getting in through the play-in. I'm just going to keep it that way. I think the only adjustment I made is I have the Pacers upsetting the Cavs in the first round, so the Pacers will be my 7 seed. So in the West, I have the Thunder defeating the Rockets in 5. I have the Nuggets defeating the Suns in 5. I have the Mavericks defeating the Timberwolves in 6, and I have the Lakers defeating the Kings in 6. Specifically looking at these matchups, I think the Thunder would steamroll the Rockets. I think the Nuggets would pretty handily beat the Suns. Mavericks and Timberwolves, I think, will be close. I just prefer the Mavericks shot creation on the perimeter more than the Timberwolves. I think that I just don't trust Julius Randle. That's kind of what it boils down to with Minnesota. I do trust Luka and Kyrie. And then Lakers-Kings, I actually think will be a competitive series. Sabonis and Anthony Davis. Sabonis always plays Anthony Davis really well. I think that's the key matchup to look at. But, you know, even though the Kings improved by adding DeMar, I think I just prefer the Lakers' top 2 duo over them. So I'm going to go chalk in the West. All of my top seeds win.
Interesting seeding, though. Lakers hosting a playoff series. It'd be interesting. They'd really have to commit to regular season basketball more than they have in recent years. I do have one upset in my play-in. I have the Pelicans getting in as my 8 seed. I have the Kings, who were my 7 seed, tied in terms of record with the Lakers. I have them missing the playoffs ultimately. I think the Pelicans are more talented. I think that they can really physically give some problems to Sacramento. I'm sorry, Logan. I think they're super athletic. I think they have a higher defensive ceiling. I think they have more creators ultimately. It's weird. It's wonky. I don't like the fit in New Orleans, but I think by the end of the year, they'll have it a little bit more figured out, and I think there's a higher ceiling there. So I have them getting in, knocking out the Kings. Then I have the Pelicans losing handily to the Thunder, we'll say in 5. I have the Nuggets beating the Suns again in 5. I mean, the Suns don't have a prayer at dealing with Nikola Jokic. I just don't think that they can defend at a high enough level to really throw the Nuggets offense out of rhythm whatsoever. I have the Mavs beating the Lakers in my 3-6 in 6. I do think that would be a fun series because I think that the LeBron AD duo can really be overwhelming in that matchup. And I think the Lakers offense is going to be really high level. I don't think these two teams are honestly crazy far apart in this specific matchup, but I do think the Mavs have a little bit more talent overall. I think that if they find the right lineup combination, you get Najee Marshall in there. That's a plus perimeter defender that the Lakers just don't have the likes of in their rotation, and that's really the problem for LA is how do you deal with Luka and Kyrie with the point of attack issues that they have starting D'Lo and Austin Reeves. I don't think that you can play Vando big minutes. I think he's just too limited offensively. So I will go with the Mavs there. Then I'm taking the T-Wolves over the Grizzlies. Two offenses that in the half court are going to have some issues, but the T-Wolves have absolutely the best offensive player in the series in Ant, and I think that they have the better team defense, although these are both pretty good team defenses. So I have my concerns about Randall as well, but in total I have more concerns about the Grizzlies' half-court offense with Marcus Smart's shooting inconsistencies, with Jaw's pull-up shooting inefficiency, with Triple J's inconsistency and inefficiency from beyond the arc in recent years. I trust Minnesota more. I think that they're also really, really deep. Memphis has solid depth, but Minnesota's got probably the best bench in basketball. Very impressive stuff. How about out east, Logan? What do you have in the first round?
In the East, I've got the Celtics rolling over the Cavaliers, beating them in 5. I've got the Magic taking on the Pacers. That's my 2-7 battle. I think that's going to be a really interesting series if we get that. So
Yeah.
I have the Magic winning it. I think I trust their defense just a little more than Indiana's offense, but that's going to be a great series. I have that going 7 games. I have the Knicks beating the Heat in 6. And then the other real battle I have out east is Sixers-Bucks, which I agonized over just with how much talent, the top of both of those teams have. And I think it might come down to health with both of those rosters, right? What does Embiid look like come playoff time? What does Giannis look like come playoff time? But I have the Sixers winning that one in 7 as well. I think that would be a battle.
Okay. I have the Celtics handling the Heat. I'll say that that's a sweep. No disrespect to Heat culture, but there's just such a massive, massive talent gap there. We saw it go 5 last year, even without Jimmy, though, so maybe that should be the pick. I have the Knicks beating the Cavs. I think that the Knicks are just ultimately a very talented team at the top, and so are the Cavs, but the Knicks are more talented, and it's in a more cohesive fit, and I think that they ultimately have more high-end offensive skill here. I'm taking the Sixers to beat the Pacers. I love the Pacers offense. They can run and gun and outshoot anybody, but I really don't think they have a prayer of an answer for Joel Embiid. They have a good perimeter defender in Aaron Nesmith who you could throw at PG or Maxey, but they just don't have multiple good answers on that side of the ball. I think that they kind of get overpowered by Philly's offense. Then I have the Bucks beating the Magic. I like the Magic a lot this year. I think they're going to be an elite defense, and I think KCP was a really great pickup for them. I think that they have really awesome perimeter personnel to throw at Dame. I still think Giannis is going to perform pretty well in this matchup, even though it is a tough defensive front line. And I still have some questions about Paolo being a consistently efficient number 1 option in a series where you're dealing with a superstar tandem like Dame and Giannis. And I do think the Bucks improved on the margins, right? I think that their depth got better. I think bringing in a Gary Trent Jr. is an upgrade. They're still flawed, but I can't really bet against that duo of Dame and Giannis in the first round. Okay, how about the second round out west, Logan?
So I have the one-seeded Thunder defeating the Lakers in 6. This was a matchup last year that I thought that if we had gotten, that the Lakers would have a really good chance at winning just because of their athletic and size differences, right? The Thunder, slight team, not great at rebounding. I thought LA would maybe just physically overpower them. This year, adding Isaiah Hardenstein, adding a guy like Alex Caruso, I just think the Thunder are more overwhelmingly talented, and I think they addressed that, uh, thinness in the front court. So I don't think the Lakers have really any advantages over them. I think the Thunder are one of the most talented rosters in basketball. And then, yeah, I don't think J-Dub is going to have as bad of a playoff run this year. I don't think Chet's going to shoot as poorly. I think those young guys figure it out. So I think that would be a really good series, but I have the Thunder beating the Lakers in 6. And then my 2-3 is Nuggets-Mavericks, and I have the Nuggets defeating the Mavericks in 6. A lot like you said, I don't know if the Mavericks have a good answer for Jokic, right? I think that Jokic will probably get what he wants against Gafford and or Lively, and I think that the shooting on the wings and the shooting from Jokic will progress back to the means. I think that Murray's not going to have as disastrous as a series. I don't think that the Mavericks have a ton of great perimeter defenders to throw at him. I think MPJ is going to shoot better. I think Jokic will shoot better. So I have the Nuggets defeating the Mavericks in 6, setting up a Thunder-Nuggets Western Conference Finals.
So I have the Thunder beating the T-Wolves in 5. I think a competitive 5, but these are two elite defenses. I think OKC is even better on that side of the ball, though, and I think the skill gap is just too great. Minnesota's scrapping to be an average offense. OKC is going to be up there for the best offense in basketball. They have the best player. They have more two-way forces, and I think that they just have more answers. They have more combinations. They can go big to battle with that Randall Gobert front court, right? You have Isaiah Hartenstein out there on Randall. He can guard the post, and then you have Chet out there, an elite rim protector alongside him with Gobert. They can go Chet at the 5 to try to pull Rudy out of the paint. They just have more talent. They just have more answers. And then I also have the Nuggets beating the Mavs in 6. I trust Denver's offensive formula more, and I don't think Dallas's defense is well built to stop the Nuggets in particular because they're weak at the point of attack. I mentioned Najee Marshall, who I'm high on, but I still think Dallas is going to start Kyrie, Luka, and Klay all together. So that favors Jamal Murray. And they have very good rim protectors in Lively and Gafford, but Denver isn't a conventional rim pressuring team, right? They're not about getting downhill. It's about Jokic drawing extra attention in the paint, dotting up cutters. That's a lot of how they generate their shots at the rim. Or he's just knocking down these 8-foot touch shots that are unstoppable. They don't have a great post defender, as you mentioned. Jokic will go through Gafford. Lively's bigger, can't offer real resistance. And Denver just has more difference makers outside of the respective star duos with Aaron Gordon and with Michael Porter Jr., who really excel in their roles. I just think you have more questions about the Dallas bigs. You have more questions about PJ Washington. They're not consistent, high-impact, top 60 in Aaron Gordon's case. Honestly, maybe close to that with MPJ too. Like just really good third and fourth options. Dallas doesn't quite have that in the same way. How about the Eastern Conference semis, Logan? What you got?
I've got the Celtics defeating the Sixers in 6. I think Philadelphia can make this a little interesting. It requires Embiid playing at his apex. The Celtics are, again, one of the most talented rosters in basketball. It's going to take a lot to topple them. And I think the Sixers have firepower to get to the conference finals if they avoid Boston in the first 2 rounds, but Boston's a buzzsaw. And then I have the Knicks defeating the Magic in 6 games. I think this is where Orlando's offense just stalls out a little bit. The Knicks are more talented. I think they match up size-wise with Orlando there, where Orlando doesn't have a distinct advantage, and Orlando just lacks that upper echelon creation, right? Brunson's a better creator. I think Karl Anthony Towns is a really good number 2 option. Having Bridges, like the Knicks are really loaded, and I think this is where the Magic's offense stalls out a bit. So that is setting up a Boston and New York Eastern Conference Finals.
Okay, I'm going to have the same conference finals. I have the Celtics beating the Bucks. I'm more optimistic about the Bucks this year, but I still worry about their point of attack defense in a matchup like this where Boston just has so many skilled ball handlers, so many athletes. They're so excellent at attacking mismatches, and you have Dame on the floor and just an okay perimeter defender alongside him and Gary Trent Jr. I worry about Brook Lopez in this matchup, right? He's going to be dealing with a stretch big and a bunch of skilled ball handlers, perimeter skill overall, volume 3-point shooting. I just don't think it's a good matchup for the Bucks, and I also think that they're outmatched skill-wise. Dame and Giannis have the potential to go crazy, but it would have to be really, really outstanding, and you'd need a Tatum clunker for them to win this series. Then I have the Knicks beating the Sixers. I do think this is really close. I would pick this to go 7. I think the Sixers' big three could just be overpowering, right? It's such a tremendously talented and complementary big three that they have, but I do trust the Knicks more. I do think they have more high-end talents. They have excellent defenders to throw at both PG and Maxey as well. You put OG on PG and you put Mikal Bridges on Maxey, like, that's phenomenal. And they have 2 big bodies to throw at Embiid. I'm not saying Cat is an excellent defender, right? He has some issues in space and he has some limitations as a rim protector, but purely guarding the post, guarding a Joel Embiid, obviously, listen, Embiid is going to give him buckets, but my point is that's not the worst assignment actually that he could have, and Mitchell Robinson fared reasonably well. Embiid could go nuclear. He could, but we haven't seen it yet, and the Knicks are such a good basketball team that I think with the addition of Cat, they have the offensive skill where they can overcome the Sixers' big three, but it's very close to me, that matchup. Okay, Logan, conference finals, start out west. What you got?
I think these are going to be both wars, both of these series in the conference finals. I have the Thunder beating the Nuggets in 7. I just think the Nuggets' margin is a lot smaller, right? I don't think you can afford a Jamal Murray, disappearing act. I don't think you can, I don't think you can sustain with an MPJ, disappearing shooting. I think Jokic has to be nails. I think the Nuggets have to play perfect basketball against Oklahoma City to beat them. I just think Oklahoma City has insane depth. They've got insane talent. And, I really think back to last season against Denver against Minnesota and how they were able to bottle up Jamal at the point of attack. And I think Oklahoma City has really good defensive personnel to throw at a guy like Jamal. I mean, throughout the roster, if it's Caruso, if it's SGA, if it's Kason Wallace, I just think they have bodies to throw at them.
Dort, come on now. We got to mention Lou Dort.
Oh, Dort, of course, Dort. I was thinking Dort maybe on, MPJ or something like that. But yeah, I mean, you've got a ton of
Jamal.
You got a ton of options on the perimeter. Everybody can defend. There's no weak points. And then on the interior, if Hartenstein is healthy come playoff time, I think they have a really good recipe to throw at Nikola Jokic. Again, there's no great answer for Jokic. There never has been. But this is about as good as it gets, right? You had Gobert and Cat do their thing last year. Chet and Hartenstein is pretty intimidating. Now, I do think Jokic can win this series. I think Jokic is that great of a player where he could individually just take out the Thunder by himself. That is my belief in Nikola Jokic. And obviously, I don't mean just by himself. He needs his teammates to play well, duh. But Hartenstein struggled a little bit more last year in the matchup against Joel Embiid than his teammate Mitchell Robinson did, and I think that was noticeable. Embiid physically overwhelmed him a little bit more than he could against Mitchell Robinson, and that's where I wonder if Jokic does have an edge. I think that if they put Hartenstein or Holmgren on Jokic, I think Jokic can still bully those guys one-on-one in the post, because Jokic is so strong. And again, Hartenstein is an upgrade, and Hartenstein is an addition that I think they needed to put them on even footing and to overtake the Nuggets. There's just no great answer for Jokic, and so I could definitely see Jokic. It requires him playing at a level closer to his championship run than last year, but it's not out of the picture, and that's why I have this one going 7. It is very close between them and Denver because of my belief in Jokic. But again, I think Denver's margins are just a little slimmer than Oklahoma City's. I like their depth more. And, yeah, I just like their talent top to bottom.
I'm taking the Thunder in 7 here as well. I think that you laid out a couple key components. I think OKC is really exceptionally built to guard Jamal. And I think when you have a guy like Lou who can be super physical with him, that can give issues. Alex Caruso, I think, is the best perimeter defender on the planet. Like, that's just really tough for him to have to deal with. It's really tough to separate. It's tough to get downhill in a matchup like that. And I do think they have the ingredients for a decent formula against Jokic. Basically, I think what they'll try to do is recreate the Timberwolves strategy where you have Hartenstein guard Jokic as his primary post defender, and you have your best rim protector, Chet, who's also slider, guarding Aaron Gordon in that Roma role, ready to blow shit up as a helper. The difference is Hartenstein isn't as massive as Cat, so I do think that Jokic will find more success against him, but I still think fundamentally it's not a bad approach for them to take, and they have such athletes that, like, they can double Jokic more successfully than other teams because they can just fly around and cover ground and recover to shooters quicker and potentially force some more mistakes there. Again, man, the theme with OKC is just versatility, depth, answers. They have so many options. And I do think that they're a more skilled basketball team top to bottom. Denver has proven to be a good defense, but it's a hell of a task having to guard all these dudes. And I don't think OKC will be able to go 5-out small ball a ton because I think that they want Hartenstein and Chet out there both in this matchup. But if they do, then that's going to be really tough to guard. And really, I think where OKC can take an edge in this series is in the bench minutes. Because even though I think Denver's bench is improved, I mean, come on, dude. OKC can still be trotting out studs, right? They can have a pure bench unit of Kason Wallace, Alex Caruso, Aaron Wiggins. It's incredible.
This is a stupid question that just popped in my brain. Do you think the bench for Oklahoma City would be better than the Wizards starting five? Like, would you rather have that as your starting five?
If we could manipulate it in a certain way, like I wish that we could start Hartenstein with our bench, but he's gonna start in real life.
Okay, so hypothetically, let's say it's Caruso, it's Kason, it's Wiggins, it's J. Will, and then who would the last guy be?
Isaiah Joe, probably, right? You're small. You're really small with that group.
I still think I'm taking them over Washington, man.
It's arguable. Kuz is solid, but it's a really, really good bench, dude. It's a really good bench. This team is just obscenely loaded. And Denver, top to bottom, is not, but Jokic is such an overwhelming force. I really think he could do it. I'm just not going to pick it. This is such a great OKC team. How about the Eastern Conference Finals, Logan?
Yeah, I think these teams are set up to go to war too. Celtics and Knicks, obviously a rivalry matchup here. I have this one going 7 games, and I just think Boston's the most talented team up there with Oklahoma City, and that's why I'm taking them to go to the finals. I do think the Knicks have a very potent punch that they can throw at Boston. I don't think that Boston can physically overwhelm them in the way that they can against other teams, right? With Cat in the fold now, if you have healthy Mitchell Robinson, right, that's a very tall tandem on the wings. Bridges and Anunoby are very athletic, long guys. Like, I think the Knicks can throw a very strong punch at Boston, but Boston's so overwhelmingly talented, and they've played together, and that's a big component of why I'm very confident in Boston repeating. Like, Boston's played together for a while now, and they won the chip, and they're still uber talented. Like, it's going to take a lot for me to pick against Boston. For the Knicks to win and for me to confidently take New York, it would be Tatum is struggling through the first 2 rounds, and it would take a major injury to somebody. If it's Tatum, if it's Brown, if it's Porzingis, Horford, Derek White, Holiday, one of those guys I think would have to be out of this series for me to confidently take New York. But I still think it's going to be a close series if both of these teams are at full health. So I'm going to take the Celtics in 7.
Ooh, in 7. Wow. Knicks respect. I would say 6. I still think it's a real uphill battle for the Knicks to win this series. And I love what they've done going all in. I love picking up Mikal. I love going out and getting Karl Anthony Towns. I think they're really, really good. They have an amazing top 4 now. And shout out Josh Hart, too. He's very good. The Celtics just have more true advantage creators, right? Dudes who can really do damage with the ball in their hands. As good as Mikal and OG are, they are not that, whereas Derek White legitimately is, right? KP, it's not going to be with the ball in his hands in terms of like ball handling from the perimeter, but self-created offense, still amazing post-up player. They're so absurdly skilled, and the Knicks have more defensive vulnerabilities. Jalen Brunson is going to be attacked in a matchup like this. Karl Anthony Towns, I've defended his defense because I think some people are too low. Nevertheless, this is a matchup in which he is going to have a really tough task in front of him, and being asked to guard in space, not being a high-end rim protector against the Celtics team that specializes in 5-out and drive and kick basketball. It's just hard. And on the flip side, Boston has amazing personnel to guard Brunson and try to wear him down, right? You have so many good perimeter defenders that you can throw at him. It's hard. I love the Knicks. I'm with you. I think it would take something legitimately going wrong for Boston. Like, I think it would probably take an injury, as good as I think New York is, because Boston's just that good, and it's a tough matchup for the Knicks. It's always been a tough matchup for them. Okay, Logan, NBA Finals. We both have the same matchup. Thunder Celtics, 1 seed versus 1 seed. What's your prediction?
I'm so excited, man. I really hope this is what we get in the finals, dude. Like, I think they're the most talented teams from both conferences. You've got star power everywhere. I'm really excited. I'm going to take the Celtics to beat the Thunder in 7 for a few reasons. I think the Celtics are preparing. Like, I think they are ready to go. I think Missoula has this team, like, they've got the champion willpower. I think this team has been grinding all offseason to run this thing back. I do think the margins have shrunk, though. The Thunder are so good top to bottom that I don't think the Celtics can perform like they did in the playoffs last year and still win, right? Like, I think they need Porzingis to be available for this entire series, and he needs to be able to give you 20 to 25 a night. I think Jason Tatum cannot crap his pants and just miss a bunch of jumpers like he did in this playoff run. Like, Tatum is always going to impact the game in so many different ways, with dribble penetration, with playmaking, with rebounding, with elite defense. Tatum always does that, but he's not going to be able to have a clunker of an offensive series the way he did in the finals last year. There's just not enough margin with a talented, loaded team that they're playing in Oklahoma City, right? Everybody's got to be healthy, everybody's got to be available, and everybody has to be on their A game. But Boston, I think, is a little bit more physically imposing than Oklahoma City. I think Boston has the experience advantage still over OKC. I know that OKC got their growing pains out last year, but Boston's been here before. They're more battle-tested. They've got more veterans up and down their roster. But the area where I do think Oklahoma City has a real distinct advantage is depth. Like, I trust Oklahoma City's bench a lot more than I trust Boston's. Again, I think this is going to be a battle. I think it's going to go 7 games, but I am going to take the defending champion Celtics to knock off Oklahoma City. But this is going to be a war. I'm so excited, man. I'm really crossing my fingers. I was excited for Nuggets Boston last year. I'm even more excited for Boston Oklahoma City if that's what we get this year, man. It's a long ways away, man, but I'm super pumped.
The theoretical Nuggets Boston final of last year that never happened. I'm taking the Thunder in 7. I think that on paper it makes sense for Boston to still be the favorite. They are more of a sure thing, and I think that they are going to be better this year than last year. Not in terms of regular season, but I think Tatum is going to have a better jump shooting run. Kristaps Porzingis hopefully will be healthy. I think that their bench is a little bit better this year. And I have a couple questions with OKC about the consistency of their shooting. That's the one thing. Love Alex Caruso. Really like Lou Dort. Those guys are solid shooters overall, but they're vulnerable to some cold spells. Even Chet went cold in the playoffs last year. I wouldn't expect that to happen again, but they could be out there playing a non-shooting 5 in Isaiah Hartenstein, who, again, is solid for your spacing because he's so amazing in the paint in terms of his touch shots out to like 12 feet, but not a three-point shooter. Boston can play 5 out with 5 damn good three-point shooters, and they can make almost 40% of them and take more than anybody else in the league, and that's a crazy weapon. Here's what I'm betting on with OKC. J-Dub and Chet improving significantly to the point where they can play at a comparable level to Jalen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis. I couldn't be higher on Chet as a player. I think he's an out-of-this-world defender. I think he's a supremely uniquely skilled offensive big. I think he's going to have a much better shooting run. I think he's going to be a little bit more lethal with the ball in his hands overall. And I just think he had sort of a rookie moment in the postseason last year. J-Dub, I think, is also a much better on-ball creator than he showed in the playoffs last year, and is such a complete offensive player, such a complete player overall, but the mid-range game, the ability to change pace as a driver, the playmaking, 40+% from deep, like, he's a monster. I think he's an amazing third option. I think he's going to show that. And they have so much athleticism in playmaking, and I honestly think they have even more answers for the Celtics than vice versa. Part of that is the depth you mentioned. They can just go with different groupings, right? They can go Chet at the 5 and pull Porzingis out of the paint, and I think that that's actually what they will do, and I think that's problematic for Boston. When you're losing out on your best rim protector and negating the one thing KP does at a really high level, which is rim protection, he's below average guarding in space, that's an advantage for the Thunder offense. And whenever these teams go two bigs on two bigs, which I don't know if that'll happen a ton, but Horford and KP out there against Hartenstein and Chet, I like the Thunder's look more there. I think Hartenstein is a more versatile, overall better basketball player than Al Horford right now. I still love Al, but the passing from Hartenstein, the interior defense, he can still guard in space. Al can really guard in space. Al can really shoot, and Al is a good passer. Hartenstein has just surpassed him at this point to me by a good bit, and they have the best player on the floor in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and while I expect Tatum to be better this time around, Shai is a different level of consistency, and so I am going to bet on him. I'm going to bet on these young dudes improving. I think they hit home runs with their additions. I think they're well built to guard the Jays and really this entire incredibly skilled Celtics offense because they have so many athletes on the perimeter. I do think this is going to be less of a Hartenstein series. I think this is going to be a lot about the Thunder kind of matching personnel and saying, okay, we are going to go 5 out, and we're going to test KP's ability to guard out in space, and we're going to maximize our offensive ceiling because defensively also you don't want to have two bigs out there as good as they are because you want to be quick. You want to be athletic on the perimeter if you're guarding the Boston Celtics. I think this OKC team is incredibly talented. I think they're a dynasty in the making. I could easily see the Celtics winning the title this year. Easily. Like, this is a toss-up for me, but I feel a rising tide, man, and I'm going to ride with it here.
I like the pick, and I think you hit on an advantage that Oklahoma City does have, and that is the fact that they're so versatile with their lineup combinations. They're going to be able to throw out whatever they need to, right? Like, if they wanted to, for stretches, if you wanted one of the offensive guys out there, if it was SGA and Caruso and Dort, and you're just going all defense on the perimeter against these guys, and you could ride the hot hands, too. There's so many good basketball players here that you could just go with the guys that are playing well. Like, Oklahoma City has that advantage over Boston, but
yeah.
And I think that is a good strategy, man. Pull out KP out of the paint. You open that up to get buckets inside there. I still think that Boston would have to slip up a little bit for Oklahoma City to win. It is close. That's why I have it going 7 games, but I think Tatum would have to be off. I think Jalen Brown would have to be a little bit off. I think that, an injury to KP or something. I think that Boston would have to give a little bit of ground. But I agree with you, though, that I think that Oklahoma City has the best player in the series. I do think that SGA is the best guy on the floor. And that's a component that does scare me because, again, man, if Tatum gives you what he gave you in the finals last year, they're going to lose. Shai's not going to do that. Shai is not going to disappear. And, again, along with that, J-Dub has to pull his weight, obviously. Chet has to pull his weight, obviously, because they didn't do their jobs last year. But Tatum can't play like he did last year. That's the bottom line. If he does like that in the finals, Oklahoma City could very easily win it. But I think we're on a collision course, man. I think this is the battle that that's setting up. I hope both these teams can stay healthy. I'm juiced, man. I'm juiced.
Yeah, I think Denver could play spoiler, but I agree. I think that this is what we're headed towards. Jokic, man. He's a superhuman, and they've still got most of the pieces in place there with that starting 5. But I think that this is what we're headed for. And listen, Boston has grown men. They just went out there and they did it in dominant fashion. There's no doubting that. But I just think OKC is in line to get exponentially better after they were a 57-win team last year. And that's something that you rarely say in the NBA. It's going to be super fun. Can't wait to see it all play out. Can't wait for the season to get started, folks. Hope you enjoyed all of this season preview content, all of our team-by-team breakdowns, and today our award and playoff predictions. If you missed any of it, it's all on our YouTube channel. It's all across audio platforms. It's all on a playlist on YouTube as well, so you can check all that out. If you want more of our content, well, you can follow us across social media, TikTok, Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh, and you can join our Discord if you want to chat with the fellas. Only a few more days, Logan. I know that we packed in a lot at the end here, guys, but we wanted to give you a few days in advance to catch up on anything that you missed and get ready for the season. Get fired up because, oh yeah, Tuesday night we'll be here. Oh, we'll be reacting to opening night, and I just cannot wait. So with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I've been Carson Brabber.
I've been Logan Camden.
And this was NerdSesh.